What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and today we are looking ahead to the big PFL season finale. It's the championship show. It's on this Friday, November the 24th. You know where you can catch it over on ESPN Plus over in the States, on the Zone here in Ireland and the UK, and check everywhere else online. And it's the showcase night. We've watched it for the last few years in two incarnations, I suppose, of PFL, but it's gotten better and better and better all the time. And it's, I think, a really interesting year for PFL. You know, a lot of things, I suppose, have gone right and a lot of things have gone wrong for PFL. They're still trucking. They still have a very good finale here. And you know what? The future seems very bright for a PFL, you know, with Francis Ngannou. And like that, you know, maybe you could argue it could have gone better for PFL, because maybe if he didn't do so well, he would have been fighting next to PFL, but it feels like he's going to box. But however, to have him on their roster seems like, you know, nothing but good, to be honest. They have Jake Paul and they have so many other things as well that are popping with them. And you know what as well? And this is, I'll do a PFL like season recap in a few weeks time around the Christmas time, but I feel like, and I'll touch more on this thing, but I feel like PFL have gotten a little bit of like the casual sports fan interest that is very hard to garner in mixed martial arts, even for the UFC. And that is a big thing. I was talking to a friend of mine recently and he was asking me about the PFL. You know, I heard him here, I think, on TalkSport, or one of the channels. I think it was Don Davis on talking there. And, you know, I think the way that he spoke there and the way he has kind of given interviews recently, I think a lot of people are intrigued by it and are willing to like tune in to see how it works and to see how, you know, they can you know, maybe shove it to the UFC a little bit or have success themselves. So I think us as MMA fans, you know, most 90% of people probably listening to this probably feel the same way. We would love for, you know, PFL and everyone else to have success, and we know that, you know, I suppose the road that they have been climbing for the last while, but now it feels like there are a few other people, you know, getting, maybe not necessarily getting on board yet with it, but are looking at it like, oh, I could get on board with that. So that is fantastic for the PFL, and long may it continue for the PFL and everyone else as well, but good to see it happening for the PFL. Right, enough with the foreplay. Let's get straight into the fights here, because as always there are a lot of fights here and I want to talk about a lot of them anyway, each and every one of them. Yeah, probably each and every one of them, because they're all pretty good fights here. Yeah, I think when Clay Collard got to PFL, when Olivier Aubin-Mercier got to PFL, if you were to tell the two of them when they had their first fight that they would be in this situation where they are now, everything having kind of gone the way it has for them, I think they both probably would have bitten your hands off for that. Like, you look at Clay Collard, right? You look at some of the wins and the fights he's had. He's beaten Anthony Pettis, beaten Jeremy Stevens, beaten Stevie Ray, beaten Shane Burgos. You know, and there's a few more in there as well. You look at Olivier Aubin-Mercier, unflappable since he left the UFC, won every single fight. What is it, 8-9 fights? Unbelievable. You know, beat the likes of Hauschman Manfeo, beat the likes of Stevie Ray, Shane Burgos as well, Daryl Harcher, Marcin Held, Nathan Schultz, the former champ. It has been a real massive, brilliant road for both of them. And, you know, for Collard, he's taken a couple of losses across the way, absolutely, but and Aubin-Mercier hasn't. But at the same time, you know, he was a guy who was in the UFC. You know, he took his losses in the UFC. He had a few fights outside of the UFC. Remember, he had a good spell in boxing, and that boxing spell, I think, revived, you know, not necessarily revived his career, but I think revived him for the hardcore fans, and it made him a little bit of a fan favourite, because, you know, look, the same with Francis. We love it when MMA fighters stick it to the boxers. Like, we absolutely love that, and he did that. And I think when he came into PFL and people saw him being able to transition back over, I remember I spoke to him on one of the media calls one time, and I was like, is it hard to transition back? And he was like, what do you mean? I was always an MMA fighter. People forget I was only playing at the boxing for a while. And I was like, yeah, that is a good point, to be fair. And maybe that actually played into some of his earlier work, and we've seen it. You know, you kind of expect Clay Collard to be a boxer now, and He's absolutely a well-rounded mixed martial artist. You know, he obviously loves the boxing. He loves to get into a fist fight. But he can wrestle. He's good on the ground. He can fight everywhere. And you know what? He is a fighter that I think in years to come, he's the type of fighter you hope people will remember, because he's so fun. He is so entertaining. He is, you know, he's a guy you can get behind. Like, and if you're a neutral fan here and you're not, you know, a non-Aubin-Mercier fan, you maybe be hoping he'd win this, so he will definitely be remembered. Like, you could say the same, say, for like a Bisping, and like, you know, maybe different, but like when Bisping won the title, it's like, you know, we don't have to ever worry about that again. Like, no one ever have forgotten Bisping, and maybe the same goes for Clay Collard, but it's a kind of a guarantee when you do that. Like, look at Brendan Loughnane last year when he won. It's like, okay, shut up a lot of the haters, and you know, Dana White with his idiocy, you know, and not signing him and all of that. It's great. It's just great to see that sometimes for people, you know. And, you know, you could say the same about Mercy. Obviously did it last year, and maybe, you know, to do it again this year. But you know, you just love to see that from Clay Collard. And from the other side of it, didn't know about Mercier, you know, I don't think anyone is hating on him either. Like, there was a lot of, and you know, maybe I'm going to say, oh, people are saying, maybe I was saying it as well, let's be honest. There was a lot of decisions and stuff from Aubin-Mercier when he came over early. But that as well has been quite 3 finishes in his last 4 fights. Finished Stevie Ray, finished Anthony Romero, finished Bruno Miranda. And he has, I said the word unflappable earlier, and it's the perfect word for him. I think since he's come to the PFL, and maybe this is a good transition over to talk about like the actual intricacies of the fight itself. Like, I think where this fight will be won and lost is in control. I think Olivier Aubin-Mercier's ability to control fights over the last 2 years, I suppose, since he has been in the PFL, and even, you know, you could argue even longer, has been just fantastic. He's really good at it, like really good at using his well-rounded game just to like do things in places that'll keep him safe but won't keep his opponent safe, if you want to put it that way. You know, he is he's really good at controlling the striking. He's really good if he needs to push you against the cage and hold you there. He's really good at that. If he needs to take you down, he's really good at that again. And not to say he's like an instant double leg or single leg takedown artist, but if he'll wear you out a little bit, then take you down, or he will catch you somewhere and put you on the ground, or a little bit of a trip or a little bit of a turn and leverage and get you there. It's just doing what he needs to do. Like, is Olivier Aubin-Mercier absolutely spectacular in any area? I wouldn't say so, but like, there's a lot of fighters, like I say, Leon Edwards, I think, is a little bit like that as well. I don't think Leon Edwards is a spectacular fighter anywhere else, but, you know, if he's not the best welterweight in the world, you know, he's top 1 or 2 anyway, you know? And that does a lot in MMA. It really, really, really does a lot. I think what Collard needs to do here really is if he can keep it a boxing match. So, not to say he'll win or Aubin-Mercier will win as a boxing match. We'll talk more about that in a second. But I think his best opportunity to win is to keep it away from the cage, keep it away from takedowns and all that. And as I said earlier, he's well-rounded. He can obviously cope in all those positions as well. But where is he best? He's going to be best there when it's striking. Now, we'll talk about striking again, as I said, in a second, but let's say Aubin-Mercier is losing the striking, and then what he needs to do, push it against the cage, take him down, get on top, take that control back, right? So let's talk about the striking. I am very interested in it because Clay Collard is so good at landing beautiful technical strikes against any opponent. And when I mean any opponent, I mean like your wild strikers like Jeremy Stevens, your controlled, tactical, technical strikers like Anthony Pettis or Stevie Ray, or your wildmen like Shane Burgos as well. He has fought so many different styles and he can do it against all of them. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, he's more the controlled style, but probably a better defensive style than any of those people I just mentioned. And you would think if this fight is fought 25 minutes, it is 25 minutes, I assume, isn't it? Yes. On the feet, you would you would give Collard the advantage, but a ticking advantage, I would say. Like, he has the advantage over 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Does he have it over 12, 15? Does he over 20? Maybe not. Does he over 25? Maybe not. It's one of those things as well. How long can he keep it going? We've seen he's good cardio, but Aubin-Mercier has fantastic cardio as well. And will the tide change? Will something be found out? I just find it very interesting. The last point I'll make in it, I think Collard will have success on the feet. I think he will land strikes down the middle, will land his jab, will land his 1-2. I think Aubin-Mercier will struggle early, but as I kind of alluded to there, the later the fight goes, will start to land a few more. It depends how much damage is done. It depends how much of the gas tank Aubin-Mercier has been able to take from Collard with clinching and wrestling and all of that. I think there's so many intricacies to this fight. Honestly, this is a big, high-level fight. I really don't know what my pick is here. I'll have a betting show later in the week and I'll give my betting pick. I know some of the prices are out, but we will talk more, I suppose, about them next week. I'll throw some of the prices at you here. Plus 188 for Collard, minus 250 for Aubin-Mercier. Honestly, I thought it'd be a little bit further out than that. I thought Aubin-Mercier would be a big favourite. And now myself, that's probably the way I would line it up, maybe even a little bit closer. I really like Collard. I like his game. I think he has a massive chance to win this fight. My straight up pick, I'm going for Aubin-Mercier. Now tune into the betting show later in the week. We'll see how the prices move. We'll see how the prices ebb and flow. We'll see some of the props maybe. But at this moment, I'm going for Olivier Aubin-Mercier just to win a decision. I'd say maybe rounds 3, 4, and 5 type of thing. I really, really like this fight. This is the type of fight I sat down and I watched some tape and I'm like, who's going to win this fight? Who is going to win this fight? I do not know. And that's what we want to see from these big fights. Heavyweight championship fight between Denis Goltsov and Renan Ferreira. The prices on this, Denis Goltsov minus 225, plus 163 for Renan Ferreira. I'm recording this obviously a good few days before you will see this video, so those prices again may and absolutely will fluctuate. This fight takes on new importance because we know what's out there for these lads. There's the £1 million for all the championship fights here, but this one, there's another 2 million quid probably out there as well, or maybe 3 million, or maybe whatever it might be, for fighting Francis Ngannou. Like, the heavyweight champion puts themselves in prime position to fight Francis Ngannou, especially if there's a big knockout, especially if there's, like, let's say Goltsov gets 4 rounds of absolutely massive takedowns, ground and pound, and get to finish or something like that. That is when, people look up and people see, and people, I'm sure Francis, I don't know if he'll be there or not, but I'm sure he'll be tuning in, I'm sure he'll be tweeting about it, and I'm sure that these two, like everyone, as I said, everyone's fighting for the million, everyone's fighting for the title. It's all important. Massively important. The most important fight of most of these people's lives. But this is an opportunity that an MMA fighter almost never gets because you have the elixir of Francis Ngannou. You have the possible massive pay-per-view guaranteed, was it 2 million or 3 million? I can't remember. I think it's 2 million. The guaranteed money from Francis that he negotiated for his opponents. Like, it looks like Francis is going to take a boxing match and then, possibly, fight an MMA fight with PFL, in maybe the middle of around next year. Like, one of these two lads, if they win it, they might say, well, I'm fighting Francis, I'm not going back into the tournament next year, or whatever it might be. That might be the way this is done. So this is a huge fight for both of these guys. Absolutely and utterly massive for both of them. And it's a very interesting fight as well. You look at Renan Ferreira, 11-3 now, 9 knockouts, 1 submission, only gone to a decision once in his winning career, only in his career indeed. And he's looked great over the last few years. He's had a couple of fights overturned and all that, but the Ante Delia fight, who was obviously would have been a favourite here this year again, but didn't get through obviously. But he's beaten everyone around that. Jamel Jones knocked him out 25 seconds, the 50-second knockout of Matthias Scheffel, who did so well last year, and knocking out Maurice Green as well, the big guy like himself. You know, he's at, 6'8", not used to fighting lads who are as big as him. And, you know, Maurice Green in there at 6'7", 6'8" as well, gave him that test and he passes it, you know, with flying colours. But I have seen improvements from Hinafea over the last few years. You know, his takedown defence has improved, but his ability to land those shots, use his size, has improved an awful lot as well. On the other side of it then, for Denis Goltsov, you know, he has had, I suppose, an up and down time of it. He lost to Aliasiev in 2019. Then we didn't see him again, obviously, you know, pandemic and all of that, until 2021. He lost to Ante Delia at the end of 2021, but came back in 2022. Got all the, you know, won all these fights, came back this year, won all these fights, and has looked absolutely spectacular in doing so. Knocked out Jorgen de Castro, submitted Jordan Hederman, beat Cesar Ferreira as well before that. And, you know, people have been asking the question, right? Who in PFL is going to beat Francis Ngannou? Well, this guy could. Denis Goltsov is a really good wrestler. He can strike. He's a finisher. He can do it all. 15 knockouts, 11 submissions, and he's 32 wins. That's an unbelievable finishing rate. You know, a Sambo fighter who is an absolute beast, is smart with getting you down, you know, has done it now for a good few years as well. When you're not heavyweight, everyone's going to take a loss in there as well, but he hasn't taken that many of them at all. And this is a big test. Now, the weird thing about the heavyweight division, obviously, but the PFL heavyweight division as well, it doesn't always work out where the favourites win, as he's seen himself in years past. This is a massive fight for both of them. As I mentioned, I gave the prices earlier on. Goltsov is the favourite, and he's my favourite too. I do think he'll win. I just think if he can stop the early knockout, the further this goes after a minute, the more it favours Goltsov. The more he can push him against the cage, the more he can take him down. You know, the bigger they are, the harder they fall type of thing as well. And I think Goltsov at 6'5" is a big enough guy himself. So it's not as if he's so small, you know, he can't get in there on Ferreira or anything like that. I think he'll get in. I think he'll get a takedown. I think he'll wear him out. And I could see him getting the finish here over Ferreira. But keep an eye on that one. Women's fights then, one of them a championship fight and one of them not a championship fight, but I suppose you would call it one that we might see in the PFL Super Fight Series down the line. First of all, the championship fight, £145 for the women. Marina Mokhnatkina against Larissa Pacheco. I suppose we all know about Larissa, so let's just touch on Marina Mokhnatkina for a second. She 35 years of age now, but look, she's been in the PFL for a few seasons, and her results have been pretty good. You know, she's won 6 of her 7 fights, only losing to Kayla Harrison. You know, she beat Abigail Montez, who obviously beat Clarissa Shields, who's a good fighter. She's beaten Yoko Higasaki in the middle of that, Amanda Leibrook, and others as well. You know, she's fought in Bellator as well, so she has a bit of experience. You know, if you look at her style, she's like, I would say Kayla Harrison light, kind of. You know, she's a judoka, maybe not as good, a bit of striking and all that. You know, she has, as I said, good submission. She won her last fight by armbar. She's key lock and other things like that. But Larissa Pacheco has really gone to the next level over the last few years. Look, she beat Kayla Harrison last year. That's all that needs to be said about that. What a win that was. Look, it was a close decision and all of that. Let's not rewrite history massively, but in my opinion and most people's opinion, I think a deserved winner of that fight and a deserved winner of all of her fights this year. Although that Julia Budd fight was pretty close, if we're being honest, it was a close fight, but she went in there like Amanda Leibrock. I think I picked her as my flyer that week. Now I didn't pick her straight up to win, but she went in and she destroyed her in 45 seconds. She beat Olena Kolesnik in 14 seconds. And that's exactly what you want in a tournament year. First fight, you know, bit of a longer fight in April, quick fight in June, quick fight in August. Now you're in here at the end of November for your finale fight as well. Look, Larissa Pacheco is... she's a massive favourite here, minus 549, plus 350 for Mokhnatkina. And that says it all. She's almost certainly going to win this fight. She's just going to be a better all-around fighter than her. She's probably going to knock her out on the feet. She probably can get on top and win on the ground as well, having prepared for Kayla Harrison, 17 times or something like that, and eventually did win. But massive fight for Pacheco again, because look, Kayla Harrison is there. She's looking for a super fight, whatever it might be, the big pay-per-view fight coming up. Maybe she gets in that, maybe she goes in next year, but still not. There's £1 million on the line, so she's not looking past next Friday night. So a massive, massive fight for her there. And I do think Pacheco, she is my pick. Kayla Harrison on this card as well. She's a minus 549 favourite over Aspen lad, plus 350 to take a break from the championship fights for a second. It's been a bit of an odd year for Kayla Harrison, I suppose. No, maybe I have this wrong, but I think she opted out of the tournament for this year, or she wasn't in it anyway. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say anyone did anything or get anything wrong there, but I think that was it. After losing last year, but that means she hasn't fought. To what date is this card? The 24th. It was the 25th last year, so a year minus a day since her last fight. For someone like Kayla Harrison, 33 years of age, also not the oldest in the world, but she had talked about this was her time to flourish. This was her time to go to the next level. Obviously, there was the talks with possibly Bellator, possibly the UFC, and all of that. And it didn't happen. So she got back into BFL last year, and she ended up losing. But it feels like her having a year out was a little bit unnecessary. Now, okay, you could say she lost and she maybe needs to rebuild things or whatever. But as I said, it wasn't actually exactly a destructive loss. It was a close fight against someone who had literally Kayla Harrison on the mind morning, noon and night for the last 3 or 4 years. It wasn't the same the other way around, let's be honest here. And she caught up with her in the end. There's nothing wrong with that. Larissa Pacheco is a very, very good fighter, as is Kayla Harrison. And I hated this stuff recently, about Kayla Harrison was found out, and maybe not recently, but at the time, she's found out and not. MMA is a tough sport. You go around it long enough, you fight a person long enough times, and they're eventually going to beat you. It's just going to happen, especially someone with the qualities of Larissa Pacheco. So absolutely no shame for Kayla Harrison at all here. And she's rebounding and fighting Aspen lad. And hopefully this is the start of a good few fights in a row for her. Look, Aspen lad, we've seen her in the UFC. We'll see what she can do. Kind of blows hot and cold. She a well-rounded fighter. 8 finishes in her 11 wins to date. She can hit hard, But, she doesn't have the athletic specialities that Kayla Harrison does, the Olympian and all of that. And, the amount of fights she won, the amount of people she has beaten over the last few years has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm very interested. Look, and I said it earlier on, maybe she didn't need to take all that time out, but I'm very interested to see what the timeout has actually done for her and to see how she's going to look here. Kayla Harrison is undoubtedly the pick. I think she's going to pick her up, put her down, and submit her here. The Kayla Harrison train will be back on tracks after that. To the title fights here, and we have 3 more to go. Magomedkerimov first against Sadibou C. Arguably the standout fight in terms of top level quality here. I would say, Magomedkerimov has been almost unbeatable, apart from Ray Cooper in 2021, who again, he had beaten was it a couple of times? He'd beaten at least once anyway before that. That's the only fight he's lost since 2015. He's won, what is it? Oh god, I can't even count them up. Like 13 of his last 14 fights or something like that. This year again, looking really, really good. Beat Solomon Renfro last time out. Finished David Zavada. Head kicking's been ugly. After beating Gleason Thibault, Danilo Taylor last year. Sadibou C, on the other hand, then maybe he didn't have that same reputation. He came into that season in what year was it? It was, I suppose, 2022, even last year, where he met Rory McDonald, and he had been around the best. 2019, he'd fought Ray Cooper and a few more, and he came in, I think, in 2022. And I suppose I didn't expect him. A lot of people didn't expect him to win that fight, but when he did, I know it was a close fight. That changed his life. That changed his career, and it was the next fight, I suppose, that went on, and he won the, our 2 fights online, he went on, he won the championship, and that really changed his career, winning the million. But this year he came in, and when he beat Jaral Al-Salawi, I was thinking to myself, this is a different fighter, this is a different animal. And he finished Shane Mitchell with a spinning wheel kick. Won the decision last time out against Carlos Miranda. Very close fight, split decision, but Miranda's a very good fighter as well. I'm very interested to see how this looks like. Magomedkerimov, you look at the name and you might think this guy is just going to wrestle and wrestle and wrestle. Now, he can wrestle, but 13 knockouts, 9 submissions on his record. He can do it all. Sadibou is a guy who'll fight on the outside. He's big and long, but as I mentioned, kind of alluded to there, he has decided to start hitting lads really hard, and again, another guy who maybe is a little bit older than we think at 36 years of age. This is really the time for him as well to kick on again in his career, win a second one and go to superstardom. How do you do that? You knock out Magomedkerimov, and I think he will go out there and try to do that, if I'm being honest. I think he'll be more controlled. Obviously, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and just throw bombs immediately, but I think he will be controlled on the outside. But if this was last year, I would think, okay, it's going to be very difficult to stay off. You need to throw a few shots, but he has thrown a few more shots against a guy like Magomedkerimov, who is really good at controlling, really good, as I said, at takedowns as well. Not just a takedown artist, but that you need to make them pay a little bit. That was always a problem, say, with someone like a Habib. Before he'd even take you down, you had to make him pay on the feet to stop the rush, to stop the takedown. You have to beat him at source. And Sadibou is actually increasingly good at doing that. But I just think Magomedkerimov is probably one of the best fighters in the world, definitely the best fighter in the PFL, I think, at beating everyone to source. He is minus 250 to plus 175 here. Again, we look at the prices later on in the week at the betting show, but the straight up pick is Magomedkerimov. I do think he will be careful enough on the feet against C. He will pick his moments. The 5 rounds suits him. I think he'll get the few takedowns in there that will matter the most, and I think he'll end up getting the win. Jesus Pinedo, and what a year it's been for the two of these guys in the highly vaulted featherweight division. Would anyone have picked the two of these lads to be, I suppose, the guy here? They fought back in April, and Gabriel Braga obviously won that one, split decision, close fight. They went on and beat Marlon Moraes and went on and beat Chris Wade. The other side of it then for Pinedo, he beat the number 1 guy in that division, Brendan Loughnane, absolutely, knocked him out, put him on a place he's probably never been before for Loughnane, and then he knocked out Bubba Jenkins as well to put himself in a place where, okay, a guy who's just beaten him in obviously a close fight, he's now probably thinking like, this guy has kind of gone to a different level, and he was always, a knockout artist, always landed the big shots, 22 wins, 17 finishes, 13 knockouts. I like both of them, to be honest. I like their styles. Pinedo is southpaw with the low hands, with the kind of the odd outside movement. Throws those low kicks, but we saw in the first fight kind of leaves himself open. A lot of the time, wide stance is good for those kind of whipping shots in with these head kicks, and uses his size a lot, uses his side kicks a lot as well. He's very good with them, whereas Braga's more of a boxer, can wrestle, as we saw, very heavy hips when the fight gets to the ground. And again, you look at this, it's like, who's going to win this fight? Minus 138 for Braga, Pinedo plus 105. And I think that's probably based on the fact he won earlier on in the year. This is a toss-up of a fight. I think I'm going to go with the turnaround. I think I'm going to go against the odds. I think I'm going to go for Pinedo here. I think that power, but the confidence he has gained in those 2 wins, like, it's very hard to get. I was listening, there was an interview with an Irish sports person on here. His name was Richie Hogan, if you want to go and listen to the interview. But he said when he was young, he was breaking into his team, and he never. And in one game, he went out and he scored, the equivalent of how we put it in American terms, 3 touchdowns, right? Let's put it that way. And then from then on in, he had the confidence. I did it once, I can do it again, and he went on to be one of the best that's ever played the game, right? No, okay, I'm not saying the same for Pinedo here, but the fact he's able to go out and do that to Loughnane, to Jenkins, he knows he can do it now. He did it against some good guys in his career on the way up, and he fought in the UFC, and, he but there was never a guy like Brendan Loughnane who had just won $1 million and all, or Bubba Jenkins, that he had done it to before. And the fact that he's done it to them, I think he'll go on to the next level. So I'm picking him to win here. Although I really like Braga. I might change that pick later. I might change that pick later in the later in the week. Keep an eye on my Twitter. Keep an eye on the betting show as well for that. Silveira against Impa Kasanganay. A very interesting fight. -150 for Kasanganay, +110 for Silveira. I'll tell you what, I'm going with the underdog again in this one. I'm going for Silveira, the straight up winner here. I've been very impressed with him since he made his debut in the PFL in 2022. He got in there, was a little bit too quick, I think, to the top against Amari Akhmedov last year, but he's come in, learned the lessons, got 3 finishes, 3 first-round finishes, Sam K, Dylan Monte and Ty Flores. Okay, not the level maybe you would expect, but when he beat Martin Hamlet last year, I was thinking that's such a good win there for a guy who's wrestling and grappling and all. Now Kasanganay did the same. He went in and he beat Martin Hamlet, and maybe you could say it's even more impressive for a guy who's striking to beat Martin Hamlet, who who wrestles a lot. It was funny. I remember the build up to that fight. I kind of gave it the Kasanganay. People just look at him and they say, he's just a striker, and all he could just, he can wrestle too. And he'd only 2 knockouts at the time. Like, we have to think further. We can't just be. And then he knocks him out in 2 minutes. So I would kind of refresh that speech here maybe again. Look. Kasanganay, as he proved in that fight, he can go out and he can knock anyone out. But we need to look at him as more of a fighter than that. He might go out and get the first round knockout again, absolutely. But let's say he doesn't. He's going to have to bear with that wrestling of Joshua Silveira. He's going to have to stop him from taking him down. He's going to have to live with the unbelievable submission prowess that Silveira has. 11 finishes in his 12 wins to date, only losing that 1 decision to Amari Akhmedov last year. Been really, really good, and the level he's fought, obviously because of who his father is and all of that, has been very, very high. I like Silveira here. The reason I like Silveira here is I can't ignore that 3 knockouts in 14 wins. I can't ignore that. 3 knockouts in 17 fights. 4 submissions as well in there, but I don't think he's going to submit Silveira. I think Silveira is going to survive early, get the takedown, get on top, and get the submission win there. So I'm going for Joshua Silveira to win in that one. There are some really good fights on this card elsewhere. Brunson, I didn't even realise that fight was happening. I'm sure a lot of people are probably the same as me. Like Ray Cooper again. Another guy who hasn't fought since last year when he beat Brett Cooper. It was a bit of a weird year last year for him. He lost to Carlos Miranda in a close decision. Did beat Brett Cooper and ended up not getting through, and before that, jeez, what a run he was on 2021, getting $1 million, beating Magomedkerimov, beating Rory McDonald. God almighty, what a win. And, he beating Chris Curtis the year or 2 before that as well. You look at Derek Brunson, obviously coming over from the UFC. Okay, he lost his last couple of fights against Dricus du Plessis and Jared Cannonier, but look at where Kevin Holland is going now. He's been going well over the last couple of years again, beating Darren Till and Ian Heinisch and a few more as well. Brunson is what Brunson is, and this is a real fun fight here. Up to middleweight as well for Ray Cooper. Obviously, we know I think a large part of the reason why he wasn't in the tournament this year was probably cutting the weight again. I know didn't he miss weight last year as well? Last year. Perfect. The perfect matchmaking. I love this fight. I'm very interested to see who wins it. Is there a betting prize up for that? There is. It's very, very close here. -150 for Cooper, the favourite, +110 for Brunson. Interesting prices. Interesting. I'll probably go with Brunson there, to be honest. But as I said, watch the betting show next week and you will get your official betting picks for that. But that's the pick here with Brunson at the moment. Card as well, Jesse Stirn against Josh Blyden. I'm sure that'll be looking towards next year. Khai against Philip Caracappa. Biaggio Ali Walsh, who is very much impressed. Obviously, you know, is the grandson of Muhammad Ali against Joel Lopez, who had been fighting amateur. I believe that's his pro debut, if I'm not mistaken. So a big, very important fight for him, fighting out of Extreme against Chris Wade for what feels like about their 700th fight, but it's not. They fought in this year. Bubba Jenkins won that one. They fought in 2021. Chris Wade won that one. And like that's it. They've only fought twice. So here we go. Look, we know what we get with both of these guys. You know, Bubba is a southpaw. You know, he's a guy who, when he is on form, he is so good. You know, he out-wrestled Lance Palmer, loves to come in and hit hard with his striking, which is very effective. And when he looks smooth, he looks smooth. You know, he's one of them. Chris Wade is a guy who I think on purpose kicks a lot to turn it into a wrestling match. You know, really strong, good striker, but he's willing to throw more than his opponent because he's happy to get inside. This fight's going to be a close fight. This fight's going to be a toss-up. We know that at this stage. And who will the winner be? So I suppose we'll see. It's minus 138 for Jenkins, the underdog, plus 105 for Chris Wade. Yeah, I probably will go with Jenkins in that one as well. The other minus 250 for Stirn over Blyden, plus 188. Wu is plus 170, minus 225 for Caracappa, and I believe we don't have the odds for the other fight. Maybe it is an amateur. I'll check that out and we'll let you know. But a very interesting PFL championship card. They always deliver. They're always really good. You see people taking away the million. I spoke about it last year after, and I'm like, this is, you know, sometimes we can get very negative in MMA, and we can, you know, I did a podcast last week talking about pay and talking about, you know, how it's, you know, and we've seen a lot with the pay figures coming out over the last while, but to see, you know, multiple people getting $1 million, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. We can have a good news story next Friday night, and I'll watch with glee while seeing some very good fights as well. All right, we leave it there. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.